Is the world flat or round? Actually, the more accurate question is this: why do you think the world is round? Of course, these questions might have confused people who have watched some videos or come across certain news.
Now let's continue with a man who claims that the world is flat.
A man founded an association called Flat Earth, and
the conspiracies that we actually live on a flat Earth seem to be making a comeback.
Of course, I have an opinion on this matter as well. But before we just look at the answer plainly, let me explain to you why the shape of the Earth is debated and why some people believe in the flat Earth theory. In the old days, when technology didn't exist, various opinions were put forward about the Earth and its shape. There was even a time when people believed that the world was carried on the horns of an ox. The Egyptians used to think of the world as a box, people living inside a box who believed it became night when the lid was closed. Of course, just as it couldn't be proven that these things were true, it also wasn't possible to prove they were false at that time. These innocent but illogical views were accepted by society for a while. Time passed, but technology still hadn't developed. 5th century before Christ. In the 5th century before Christ, according to what is known, Pythagoras was the first person to suggest that the world was round. He did this by observing ships at sea. Ships were disappearing on the horizon, and according to him, this could only be possible if the Earth was curved. Aristotle would support this view 200 years later. Al-Biruni, who made groundbreaking advances in mathematics and astronomy, also conducted research to find the Earth's diameter, used formulas, and claimed that the Earth resembled a sphere. Later, Nicholas Copernicus and Christopher Columbus, through their observations and research, came to believe that the Earth was round, as previously thought by others. In fact, when Christopher Columbus set out to sail continuously in the same compass direction, he thought he would reach India, but instead, he arrived at the American continent. Afterwards, he wanted to continue his journey on the same route, but his life was not long enough. Time passed and technology began to develop. Galileo Galilei invented the telescope, which was a very important invention for science and astronomy. First, he examined the moon nearby and then observed Jupiter. In the images he saw, he couldn't see anything other than round planets. For him, this was clear evidence that the Earth is round, and for humanity as well. Ferdinand Magellan, on the other hand, said, "I don't believe in inventions or anything like that. I want to see it with my own eyes," and set out to travel around the world. It is said that his journey started from the coasts of Spain, continued to the Pacific Ocean, then from the coasts of Japan to the Indian Ocean, and then back to Spain via the coast of Africa. Time passes and technology has now advanced greatly. October 24, 1946. What you see here is known as the first photo of the Earth taken from space. This photo, taken at 105-kilometer altitude, is the second one. It was taken with a camera placed on a V-2 rocket, which was built by the Nazis during the World War II, and later seized as spoils by the Americans. This photo did not yet clearly show that the Earth is round. But later, with a camera developed by Clade Holliday that took a picture every 1.5 seconds, this photo was taken first. Then 3 more photos. Photos were taken towards the north of the world, as well as towards the south and west. When these photos were combined, it was observed that the Earth has a tilt. It was a miraculous development for the world of science and astronomy, because the thing they always wondered, could the world not be as we think, was laid bare before their eyes. After these images, their belief that the Earth was round like the other planets became so strong that it would not be shaken. So after all these developments, what happened that led to theories about the shape of the Earth being proposed? It was thought that the Earth was not round, but flat. According to some, this was a secret that America and some allied countries kept from the world in order to conduct their own research. Rumors. In 1850 in England, It seriously began with the community called the Flat Earth Movement, founded by Samuel Burley. So much so that the Catholic Christian Apostolic Church established in America continues to teach the belief that the earth is flat as the foundation of the church even today, after Bolivar's death in 1942. From that day to today's flat earthers, they all had some reasons to believe that the earth is flat. If we go back to ancient times, the reason people believed the earth was flat was simply because they saw the world as flat. For them, the proof was simply climbing to the top of a mountain and saying, look, it goes straight ahead. Apart from this simple idea, what they also wondered was how people on the underside wouldn't fall off if the earth was round, or how the water in the sea could stay upside down. In 1892, patent inspectors from 7 countries granted a patent to Gleason for this world map. There was no South Pole on the map. Instead, as flat earthers also believed, the world was shown as flat, and its boundary was Antarctica, which was covered with ice, so much so that even the parts illuminated by the sun and its direction of rotation were shown. This map started to be used by students for time calculation. What was really interesting was how inspectors from 7 countries granted a patent to this map. At first, these thoughts were the biggest evidence for them that the world couldn't possibly be round. In fact, those who thought the world wasn't flat were even executed by the church. Of course, those who claimed that the world was round also had some reasons. For example, a ship disappearing from sight as it moves toward the horizon. For them, this already proved that the world was not flat. However, this evidence was not sufficient, because they said that when you look at the ship disappearing on the horizon through a telescope, you can still see the ship, and that we can't see it with the naked eye because our vision has a limit. This actually seemed to be true when you looked at it. But on a television program, it was said that this is actually an optical illusion, just like seeing a mirage, and that the object far away is actually a reflection on the water.
Bu Joshua Nowitzki'den ve burada gördüğünüz şey bir serap. Normally we can't see this from the shore of Lake Michigan. We talked about it the other night. The conditions over the lake are just right for us to see an optical illusion, and what we're actually seeing is a mirage of the city of Chicago.
Another theory is planets. While it is clearly known that the other visible and detected planets are round, was our Earth the only one that was flat among them? This didn't seem like a very reasonable idea. Could we really be different from all the other planets in form? Of course, when you look at it with plain logic, this idea doesn't really seem possible. But this plain logic didn't prove that the Earth couldn't be different either. Then, those who believed the Earth was flat were asked how the sun and the moon moved. As far as we know, the Earth revolves around the sun, and while it's daytime in one part of the world, it's nighttime in another. But how did this happen on a flat Earth? According to them, the sun is not actually as big as it's believed to be, and it only illuminates a certain area of the Earth. The sun and the moon follow each other in an orbit just above the Earth, and that's how day and night occur. But there are 3 major problems here. With the sun being this size, it can only illuminate a certain part of the Earth, not half of it, just like you can see on this map. So, the part left in the dark would be larger, but it's known that this isn't normally the case. One of the most challenging questions for Flat Earth supporters was how lunar or solar eclipses could occur on a flat Earth. Normally, a lunar eclipse happens when the Earth moves between the moon and the sun as it completes its rotation. How could this be possible on a flat Earth? For the moon to be eclipsed, the Earth needs to come between the sun and the moon. But here, both the sun and the moon are positioned above the Earth. In this case, a lunar eclipse would not be possible anyway. Let's hypothesize that a solar eclipse could occur on a flat Earth. For this to happen, the sun and the moon would have to be at an angle directly facing the Earth. At this point, a solar eclipse could occur, but the moon would be extremely close to the sun, just kilometers away from it, In a world like this, not only would a lunar eclipse be impossible, but a solar eclipse would also be illogical. The biggest evidence for most of those who argue that the Earth is not flat is that during a lunar eclipse, the Earth's shadow appears round on the moon. The shadow of the Earth, which comes between the moon and the sun, appears exactly like this on the moon. If the Earth were flat, its shadow would have to appear like this on the moon. He does not support this view. This seriously seemed like evidence that the Earth is round. In the second part, where I get the opinions of flat earthers, including what other topics they believe the Earth is flat about, and any evidence they might have, we will conclude the discussion. Most people, including me, believe the Earth is round. Do you think they will be able to change our minds about this in the new episode?